The scorching heart of the African veld held a secret of sheer terror where a man named Marcus lay broken. He was a celebrated naturalist, a documentarian whose life was dedicated to the wild, but now he was just bait. Poachers, his eternal enemies, had ambushed his team, leaving him cinched tightly to a sun-baked mopane tree. Ropes biting into his flesh like venomous snakes, a cruel message etched in his bonds. The world dissolved into a vast, indifferent ocean of dry grass and relentless heat, his shouts for help swallowed by the limitless expanse. His crew was a mere whisper on the distant wind, 20 unforgiving kilometers away. He endured a night defined by the shrieks and maniacal cackles of passing hyenas, their presence a promise of a gruesome end. And the second day he stared at the final mocking bead of moisture evaporating from his canteen, his hope as parched as the earth beneath him. By the dawn of the third day, consciousness was a flickering candle flame, his final thoughts drifting toward a cold surrender. Then the earth seemed to shift, and a silhouette unlike any other blocked the brutal morning sun.
It was the king, the undisputed monarch of this entire landscape, a colossal male lion, his golden mane a dark halo against the light, his muscles rippling with untamed power as he stood easily over a meter at the shoulder. Marcus's heart hammered against his ribs in a final, frantic rhythm. This was it, the inevitable, a fate sealed by dehydration and the laws of nature. His eyes squeezed shut, bracing for the tearing finality, but the moment never arrived. A heavy silence descended, broken only by his ragged breath. He dared to look, and what he saw defied every established rule of the wild. The majestic beast was merely standing, his intense amber gaze fixed not on Marcus, but oddly on the tough sisal ropes binding him. This lion's very stillness carried an unsettling intelligence, an absence of the primal fury Marcus expected. The great cat moved, slow and deliberate, its massive head lowering, not to deliver a killing blow, but to sniff the knots and bindings, and then a deep guttural sound, a vibrating growl, rumbled in its chest. This was not a sound of hunting hunger, but of profound, unsettling rage, and it was directed at the ropes themselves. It was in that moment when the lion tilted its head that Marcus saw it, a pale, jagged line of scar tissue running across the lion's front left leg, a distinct, indelible mark. The memories flooded back, crashing over his depleted mind like a sudden flash flood of the past. 2 years ago, while filming in a remote sector, he had found a young, starving male snared in a brutal poacher's wire trap, dying slowly from infection and pain, and without a thought for his own safety, Marcus and his team intervened. For 3 agonizing weeks, they had risked everything, tranquilizing the wild creature, meticulously cleaning the foul wound, injecting the antibiotics, Marcus himself staying nearby, a tireless patient sentinel against the overwhelming odds, earning a reluctant truce from the recovering animal. On the day of its release, the young lion had given him a silent, knowing look, a deep, heavy gaze that now impossibly stood before him, fully grown, scarred and undeniably the same. "You remember me, don't you, old friend?" Marcus whispered, the sound raw with disbelief and desperate gratitude. The lion's reply was not a sound, but an act of staggering willpower, its gigantic jaws closing not on the man, but on the thick, unforgiving ropes. A terrible grinding sound of teeth against fibre filled the air as the lion tore and sawed with persistent focus. Strand after hard-woven strand was severed, the tough bindings surrendering to the king's desperate determination. His wrists, then his ankles, the knots loosening, until finally, with one massive decisive pull at the main anchor line, the last rope snapped with a cracking sound, freeing Marcus's ravaged body to tumble to the dirt. He was alive, unbound, saved by the loyalty of a creature whose life he had once spared. But their reprieve was fleeting, as the danger that stalked the veld was already closing in. A chorus of cackles nearer this time announced the return of the hyena clan, drawn by the scent of a weakened human. The lion's head snapped up, its gaze instantly defensive, and it let loose a shattering, earth-shaking roar of challenge, positioning its immense body protectively in front of the freed, stumbling filmmaker. The hyenas, emboldened by their numbers, hesitated only briefly before circling. As one of the strike predators lunged for the lion's vulnerable flank, Marcus, operating on pure adrenaline, stumbled toward a chunk of dried, unforgiving rock. He hurled the jagged stone with the last remaining strength in his depleted body, striking the attacking hyena square on the head, sending it yelping back in shock. It was a gesture of profound reciprocity, and for a fleeting, powerful moment, as the lion looked back at him, their bond was solidified. Two friends, not predator and prey, fighting for survival against a harsh landscape. The hyenas, sensing this improbable and dangerous alliance, retreated into the shadows. Marcus knew he had to reach the camp 10 long kilometers away, but his legs were leaden, his body collapsing from 3 days of torment. The lion did not leave. Instead, it began to walk slowly, patiently, occasionally nudging Marcus forward, its presence a silent walking guard. As the savannah sky deepened into a 1,000-star tapestry, the enormous shadow of the king protected the weak human. Every distant cry, every rustle in the tall grass was met with the lion's alert, tireless vigilance. When Marcus's exhausted body finally buckled, the magnificent animal stopped, allowing the frail man to lean against its warm, comforting flank, a gesture of tenderness that transcended the gulf between their species, the steady heartbeat beneath the thick fur, a lifeline in the darkness. Hours bled into the night, the impossible march continuing until finally, a tiny cluster of familiar lights pierced the black horizon. The camp was in sight. His team rushed out in a flurry of shouted relief, but Marcus could only point, tears blurring his vision. "He saved me," he choked out. "My friend saved me." The lion stepped away, offering a final gentle rub of its huge head against Marcus's hand, a silent, powerful goodbye. Then, without a sound, the king turned his back on the human world and belted back into the shadows of the African night, leaving behind a man who would never forget that courage, kindness, and true, unforgettable friendship require no common language.